But first, I want you to forget about the Big Bang. Seriously, put it out of your mind for a minute. The real question we're digging into today isn't about what happened billions of years ago. It's about what's happening right now. What is actively holding you, your chair, the screen, and the entire universe in existence at this very instant? You see, to even start to answer that, we have to get our heads around a really important difference between two types of causes. On one hand, you've got what we call a temporal cause. Think of your parents. They are the cause of your existence, right? But once they've done their part, you exist on your own. But on the other hand, we have the sustaining cause. And this is the one Aquinas was really obsessed with. This is the here and now cause. It's like gravity holding you down. If gravity just blinked out of existence, you wouldn't just float away slowly, you would instantly no longer be sitting. The effect completely depends on the cause continuously doing its thing.
And it's this very idea of a sustaining cause that brings us to the 13th century philosopher Thomas Aquinas.
So here's how his logic works, step by step. First, he just says, look around you. Everything is being held up by something else right now. The sun's fusion sustains the sunlight, which sustains the plants. Simple enough. Second, nothing can be the cause of its own existence. I mean, to do that, it would have to exist before it existed, which, makes no sense. Third, if you take away the cause, the effect vanishes. So if these now causes went back forever and ever, an infinite chain, well, there would be no ultimate source holding it all up. Nothing would exist at all. So you see, there has to be a first cause, a first sustaining cause that isn't itself being caused by anything else. And what do you call a being that exists but isn't caused or sustained by anything? For Aquinas, the answer was just staring him in the face. By its very definition, that being is God. It's the only idea that even fits the description of an ultimate self-sufficient reality. That's when the brilliant Scottish skeptic David Hume comes along and decides to pull the rug out from under the entire thing. He says, okay, this whole argument hangs on the idea of causation. But what if causation isn't some iron law of the universe? What if it's just a habit, something our brains made up? So, to make his point, Hume uses this tool that we now call Hume's fork. It basically splits all human knowledge into two buckets. In one bucket, you have relations of ideas. These are logical truths. A bachelor is an unmarried man. A triangle cannot have four sides. You know this without ever looking at the world. In the other bucket, you have matters of fact, stuff you only know from experience, like you know the sun rises in the east because you've seen it. Now here's the kicker. Hume says the idea that every effect has a cause doesn't fit in either bucket. It's not a logical truth. You can totally imagine something just popping into existence. And it's not something we can ever really prove from experience either. Hume uses his famous example of two billiard balls, and he puts it this way. An observer could not pronounce that the one event was connected, but only that it was conjoined with the other. So when you watch one ball strike another, what are you really seeing? Think about it. You see the first ball moving, then you see it touch the second ball, and then you see the second ball move. You see event A, then you see event B. They are conjoined, one after the other, but you never, ever see the causation. You don't see the mysterious force that connects them. You just assume it's there because you've seen it happen 1,000 times. It's a feeling, a mental habit. So for Hume, our deep-seated belief in cause and effect isn't a law of physics. It's just a strong instinct our brains developed, and instincts can be wrong. But even more importantly, he says, even if this rule works for billiard balls inside the universe, who gave us permission to apply that same rule to the universe itself? The creation of the whole universe is a totally unique event. It only happened once. We haven't seen a bunch of universes being created to build up that habit of seeing a cause. Okay, so this is where it all comes to a head, the main event. The direct clash between these two thinkers over the idea of an infinite chain of causes, what philosophers call an infinite regress. Aquinas says it's flat out impossible. And Hume? Hume says, well, not so fast. Hume's point is that the claim an infinite series of causes is impossible isn't a necessary truth. He argues that the idea of an infinite regress doesn't seem to contain an obvious logical contradiction, not in the way a statement like a triangle has four sides does. Since we can conceive of an infinite series without it seeming immediately contradictory, Hume says we're not justified in ruling it out as a possibility. He basically says if every individual link in the chain is explained by the one before it, we don't need a separate explanation for the chain as a whole.
So, in response to Hume, defenders of Aquinas' argument shift the focus. They move away from what is conceivable to what is logically possible. So, to really get why Aquinas thought a real existing infinity was impossible, let's play with a famous thought experiment. Imagine a hotel, but this hotel has an infinite number of rooms, and tonight it's completely booked. Every single one of the infinite rooms has a guest in it. The no vacancy sign is on. Now, a new guest walks up to the front desk. Can they get a room? You'd think not, right? The hotel's full, but yes, they can. The manager just gets on the intercom and asks every guest to please move from their current room, room N, to room N+1. The guest in room 1 moves to 2, 2 to 3, and on for infinity. And poof, room 1 is now empty for the new guest. In fact, you can make room for an infinite number of new guests this way. This is a paradox. The hotel is somehow 100% full, and yet it still has room. For Aquinas, this kind of logical mess proves that an actually existing infinity is impossible.
So here's the core of their disagreement, right here. In one corner, you have Aquinas saying an infinite series is impossible, it's just a paradox. And besides, without a first cause to get things going, the whole chain of existence would never even get started. But in the other corner, Hume fires back. He says, look, maybe it just seems weird to our tiny, finite minds. It's not a logical contradiction. Maybe our intuitions about infinity are just wrong. An infinite chain doesn't need a start. It's infinite. It's always been going. And as for needing to explain the whole series, Hume says that's not a real problem. If you can explain each individual link by the one before it, you've explained everything there is to explain.
Now, this is the most important thing to get straight. Hume never proves that there isn't a first cause. He's not trying to. What he does is show that you cannot prove one exists with the same kind of certainty that 2 + 2 = 4.
And in doing that, Hume fundamentally changes the rules of the game. See, Aquinas was shooting for a deductive proof, something as certain as math. But after Hume, the whole conversation has to change. Any argument for first cause is no longer about absolute logical certainty. It becomes an argument about what's more likely, what's more probable, what makes the most sense of the world we see, or what we simply have to take on faith.